A man and his wife are hiking deep through the Australian bush, backpacks on their shoulders. Just the two of them, moving from one spot to the next. And then they find a body, lying right there in the dirt. They call the police, and the police start digging. One body becomes two. Two becomes a mass grave. Men, women, old, young, people who vanished years ago and were never seen again. No bodies, no clues, nothing. So who buried them all out here in the middle of nowhere? And how is he still out there? I'm Cole, and this is Midnight Files. If you're new here, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a case. His name was Ivan Marko, an Australian kid, but his family came from Croatia. His mother was Australian, born and raised, and when she got married, she was only 16, and from that marriage, she had 14 kids. 14. And those boys grew up into 14 little devils, fighting, stealing, running scams, because you can't control 14 kids. You can't raise them. So the mom and dad let the street do it instead. And the street did its job. Every one of those boys turned into a criminal, and each had his own specialty. One stole cars, one broke into houses, one mugged people on the street. One's getting out of juvie while the next one's heading to prison. It never stopped. Ivan Marko, the one this story is about, was the fifth of the kids, and he was the worst of them all. The stuff he pulled as a teenager landed him in juvie every other day. The second he hit legal age, they shipped him to the central prison. He did about 3 years. And then they let him out. And on his way out, he says, "That's it. I'm changing what I do. No more stealing." So what did he switch to? Kidnapping. He started hunting young girls, waiting for them to come out of the bars, the casinos, the late-night cafes. He'd spot one alone in the dark, grab her, and assault her. Some of them dropped the charges. Some fought him in court. And some just asked him for money to make it go away. And Ivan had a sharp lawyer. Every single time, this lawyer pulled him right out of it. And it went on for a long, long time. Every so often, another girl taken, until he hit about 30. And that's when he met a girl named Karen. He saw her standing on a highway, 20 years old, trying to get from one town to another. She'd just walked out of her parents' house. Told her family she wanted to make her own life, stand on her own 2 feet. So she grabbed her bag and headed for the main road. And, just by chance, Ivan was driving down that same road. He saw Karen, and something hit him right in the chest. She was beautiful. She had this way about her, and he looked at her and thought, "This is the one." He pulls up. "Where you headed?" "Honestly, I don't really have a set place, but I'm going to the city. Sydney. I'm gonna build a life there." "Okay, what do you think? We start our life together." "I don't have a problem with that, if you're serious." "Yeah, I'm serious." And he was. Ivan got together with Karen and married her. But that's when the other face came out. Because Ivan was violent. He beat her. He humiliated her. 3 years of marriage, 3 years of non-stop humiliation. And every time she hit her limit and wanted to run, he refused to let her go. He was obsessed with her. He loved her. But he could not stop himself. He'd beat her, and the second she asked for a divorce, he'd beg. "I swear, last time, one more chance." And she'd hold on. A year, 2, 3. Until she saw the truth. He was never going to let her go. So one night, she grabbed her bag, and she vanished. He looked everywhere. He never found her, and Ivan fell apart. He'd pulled away from the stealing and the kidnapping, but he'd poured all of it onto her instead. Until she ran, and after she was gone, this emptiness opened up inside him. He nearly lost his mind, and right after Karen disappeared, the reports started coming in. People going missing, most of them travelers, backpackers, and young girls. Among the missing, a girl named Caroline Clark, 19. She'd grabbed her bag, standing out on the main road, trying to get to another city to visit friends from school. Ivan drove by, offered her a ride, she got in, and from that day, she was gone. Then, Joanna Walters, 20, same exact thing, a backpacker. She vanished after walking out of her parents' house. Not a trace. Then, Simone, 19. The girl just never showed up again. Then a married couple, both German, backpackers, early 20s. The husband, James, the wife, Deborah. Where'd they go? Nobody had a clue. Reports poured in, from their embassy, from their families. Missing person reports had become a normal thing in this city. And then, a young British guy disappeared too. Thomas, 18, same method. So the investigators put together a task force, around 100 officers, and a reward, more than $50,000, for anyone with information. And nothing came of it. They were lost, because they didn't even have bodies. These people were somewhere inside Australia. They hadn't left the country, but there was no activity, no movement, no bodies, and that's exactly what ate at them. Years went by, and then one day a British backpacker and his wife are walking through the forest, packs on their backs, moving spot to spot, and right there in the middle of the woods, they find a body. They call the authorities. And when the police lift that body, the whole place becomes a search site. A little further out, a second body, and now they're saying, hold on, search the whole area. And what they find is a mass grave. Women, men, old, young. They pull the bodies out and start identifying them, and most of them were the missing. The backpackers everyone had reported for years, plus others they couldn't even identify. One man, kidnapping these backpackers and burying every one of them in the same place. But who? There wasn't a single piece of evidence tying it to anyone, and it got harder and harder, and they got nowhere, until one day, they get a call from Britain, a young man named Bill. I'm calling about that reward you posted. Okay, you have information. When I was in Australia a few years back, I was a backpacker, moving through the forests, and one time I'm trying to catch a ride, standing on the main road. I put my hand up, and a guy stops for me, driving a Nissan. And who is that guy? It's Ivan. I didn't know who he was, but I got in, and right away, something felt off. I'm always careful with strangers, and I noticed this guy was hiding who he really was. He'd left one of his personal cards sitting right next to his papers, and I read it. The name was Ivan, but when I asked his name, he gave me a different one, and I got suspicious. Then I noticed he was drifting off the road I was trying to get to, so I started watching him. Every move, and sure enough, he pulls over in this dark, empty spot, and the second he stops, I see his hand reach back for the back seat. And I threw the door open and I ran, fast as my body could go, and the bullets started flying. He was shooting at me. He had a gun, and I ran in a zigzag, side to side, so he couldn't get a clean shot. And somehow, I got away. I was so terrified I jumped into the first car I could find and said, "Take me to the airport. There is no way I'm staying in this country." And from that day, I hated the thought of going back. And when I read about your case, the reward this guy stalking backpackers, I became certain it's the same man. And they tell him, Bill, we need you to come here, to Australia. You're the only person who's seen his face. Absolutely not. Last time, I swore off ever setting foot in Australia again. And they begged him. They were desperate. We'll give you the reward. We'll protect you. Nobody will see you. The entire force will be at your command. Just come. Get us out of this case. And why were they that desperate? Because this was the biggest case in the history of Australia. They'd rounded up every possible suspect, filtered them down, and were still left with 1,000. Every person in the country with a record for kidnapping, rape, or murder hauled in, profiled, 1,000 names, and they couldn't pin a single thing on any of them. And the pressure kept coming from the embassies, the families, the media. So they clung to Bill. They worked on him until he caved. Fine, I'll come, officially, but you are responsible for my life. Absolutely. So they put those 1,000 suspects in front of him, and he looks, no, none of them. The man whose name I still remember, the one on that paper in his car, his name was Ivan, and his face, unforgettable. So they start searching for everyone named Ivan, especially near where the victims disappeared. They pull together about 92, all with priors, and among those 92 was our Ivan, and that's where they locked in. Because this Ivan was already accused of multiple kidnappings and assaults. He'd been lost since he was a kid, pulling robberies right through adulthood. But lately, he'd gone quiet. No activity at all. So they pull his file, grab his photo, and put it in front of Bill. And, from the first glance, yes, that's him. The man who tried to kidnap me. The man who tried to kill me. I remember him to this day. Then they dig in. There's a Nissan registered to Ivan, sold recently. But, during the exact time frame Bill described, Ivan absolutely owned one. And Bill even told them the color. Silver. It all matched. And Ivan's address was right near where the victims had disappeared. So they surround the house, and they arrest him. And Ivan denies it. That's not true. None of it. And when they bring him in front of the witness. Guys, the second I saw his photo, I knew. And even when you put him in front of me and tried to throw me off, mixing in other people, I was certain this is your man. They pressed Ivan hard, and he would not confess. Confess. Don't confess. The evidence is all there, and we have a witness. They brought up every past case, and they brought in his wife, the one who'd escaped, and she told them everything. How violent he was. A record packed with crimes. And they sentenced him to death, but the executions kept getting pushed back. And eventually, it got converted to life, and that whole time, Ivan was trying to escape. There was even one attempt, with another inmate, a member of the Australian Parliament, their upper house, who'd been locked up and met Ivan inside. The two tried to break out together. They were caught. And here's how it ended. From his very first years in prison, Ivan got cancer, and he kept suffering year after year until he was 72. That's no less than 35 years behind bars. Sick on medication, the disease slowly taking him apart. But he didn't go quickly. He lived. And every year the cancer dug in deeper, until he finally died in 2019. And that was the end of our story.